The envelope wasn't addressed to her. Lina noticed it the moment she walked into the kitchen. Cream cardstock. Gold trim. Her mother-in-law never did anything casually. Even her passive aggression came embossed. It was sitting in the center of the table like a trophy. Or a warning. She picked it up slowly. Mr. Adrian Varela. Not Mr. and Mrs. Not Adrian and Lina. Just him. Her thumb pressed against the sealed flap. Her stomach had already begun to tighten. She didn't need to open it to know. But she did anyway. Inside was a formal invitation. Saturday evening. 7 p.m. A family dinner in honor of Adrian's new executive position. Immediate family only. Immediate family only. Lina read the words twice. Then a third time, as if repetition might change their meaning. 6 years of marriage. 3 holidays hosted at her own house. 2 miscarriages his mother had pretended not to hear about. And still, immediate family only. Her phone buzzed. Adrian, did you see the invite? Mom's planning something small. Small. Lina typed back. Am I going? The 3 dots appeared instantly. Paused. Disappeared. Returned. She said it's just close family. Don't make this awkward. Don't make this awkward. As if the awkwardness was hers. As if she had mailed the envelope. As if she had written her own absence in gold ink. She stared at the message until the screen dimmed. The house felt different suddenly. Not unsafe. Not loud. Just shifted. Like a picture frame hanging slightly crooked on the wall. Subtle, but impossible to ignore once you see it. Saturday came heavy and gray. Adrian shaved carefully. Chose a charcoal blazer. The one she had bought him for their anniversary. You're really going? She asked from the bedroom doorway. It's my celebration. And I'm your wife. He sighed. It's just dinner, Lina. Just dinner. The phrase felt like a slap wrapped in silk. He kissed her cheek before she could turn away. Please don't start anything. Start. As if the fire hadn't already been lit somewhere else. She watched from the window as his car disappeared down the street. Then the silence settled in. She didn't cry. That surprised her. Instead, she made tea. Sat at the table. Looked at the empty chair across from her. It wasn't about food. It wasn't about one night. It was about erasure. About being politely removed. About being told you are not inside the circle, and expected to smile about it. Her phone buzzed again. A picture from Adrian's sister. A long polished dining table. Crystal glasses. White roses. Adrian at the head. His mother's hand resting proudly on his shoulder. 8 chairs filled. 1 visible gap at the end of the table. The caption read, Family is everything. Lina zoomed in on the image. That empty space. There had been room. They had simply chosen not to fill it. Her jaw tightened. Because this wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. And deliberate exclusion is a language of its own. Adrian came home just before midnight. Smelling like wine and familiarity. It was nice, he said, loosening his tie. You would have hated it anyway. Would have hated it. She turned slowly to face him. You didn't defend me. He blinked. Defend you from what? From being treated like I don't exist. He ran a hand through his hair. Why are you making this bigger than it is? Because it was already big. Because betrayal doesn't always arrive screaming. Sometimes it comes folded neatly inside an envelope. I just wanted to know where I stand, she said quietly. He didn't answer. And in that silence, something settled between them. Not anger. Not yet. Something colder. Something patient. Because Lina realized something in that moment. You can forgive an insult. You can forgive a mistake. But being uninvited from your own family? That plants a seed. And seeds, when watered with silence, grow. The next morning, Lina woke up before Adrian. Not because she wanted to. Because her mind wouldn't let her rest. The house was quiet in that fragile way mornings sometimes are. Like everything is pretending to be peaceful. She lay still, staring at the ceiling. Immediate family only. The phrase no longer felt sharp. It felt familiar. And that was worse. Because once she stopped focusing on the dinner, just the dinner, something unsettling began to surface. This wasn't new. It was patterned. She remembered their first Christmas after the wedding. Adrian's mother, Estella, had smiled sweetly across the table and said, We've always opened gifts at 6 a.m. It's a family tradition. Lina had woken early, dressed, waited. 6:10 passed. 6:30. 7 o'clock. Finally, Adrian checked his phone. Oh, he'd said casually. Mom moved it to 5 a.m. We must have overslept. But Lina had been awake at 5 a.m. She'd been downstairs making coffee. They hadn't been invited early. They had been informed late. She remembered the family group chat she wasn't part of. Photos of birthday dinners she hadn't known about until afterward. A lake weekend she'd discovered only because Adrian accidentally left a packing list on the kitchen counter. Just the siblings this time, he'd explained. Just. Each exclusion wrapped in a minimizing word. She moved quietly from the bed and went downstairs. Opened her laptop. Scrolled through social media. There it was again. Last night's dinner. More photos posted overnight. Estella hugging Adrian. Adrian's sister tagging everyone. Everyone. Except Lina. Her eyes drifted to the comments. So happy our family is complete tonight. Complete. Lina leaned back slowly. Complete without her. The realization settled heavily in her chest. This wasn't about one dinner. It was about narrative. They were building a version of family where she simply didn't exist. And Adrian was letting them. He came downstairs an hour later. Hair tousled. Expression neutral. You're up early, he said. Couldn't sleep. He poured himself coffee. Didn't ask why. She watched him carefully. Has your mom ever liked me? She asked plainly. He paused mid-sip. Of course she has. That wasn't an answer. He exhaled slowly. She just thinks we rushed things. We dated 3 years. She thinks you changed me. Lina blinked. Changed you how? He hesitated. She says I used to spend more time with family. There it was. The real accusation. Not that Lina was cruel. Not that she was rude. But that she existed in a way that required Adrian to divide his loyalty. And Estella didn't forgive division. She thinks I took you away, Lina said quietly. Adrian didn't respond. Silence is an answer. The pattern grew clearer as the day unfolded in her mind. Thanksgiving seating arrangements where she ended up at the far end. Family vacations planned last minute. Inside jokes she never understood. Stories retold as if she hadn't been present. It wasn't loud exclusion. It was subtle erosion. Death by 1,000 polite cuts. And Adrian had called each one nothing. That afternoon, Lina drove past Estella's house. She didn't plan to stop, but she slowed as she passed. Through the front window, she could see movement. Estella and Adrian's sister at the dining table. Talking. Laughing. The same table from last night. A strange feeling crept over Lina. Not jealousy. Clarity. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was gatekeeping. And gatekeeping requires cooperation. Which meant Adrian was either blind or complicit. That evening, Lina did something she had never done before. She didn't wait for Adrian to bring up his mother. She didn't soften her voice. She didn't cushion the conversation. I want you to be honest, she said. Okay. Am I considered family in your house? He frowned. What kind of question is that? A direct one. He rubbed his jaw. Mom just needs time. 6 years. He didn't answer. Her heart didn't race this time. It slowed. Because the truth was forming quietly, and truth doesn't shout. It settles. You didn't want to fight her, Lina said. He looked up sharply. It's not that. You didn't want to choose. His jaw tightened. Why does everything have to be about sides? Because marriage is a side. Because vows are a side. Because when someone erases your wife, and you attend the dinner anyway, that's a side. But she didn't say it. Not yet. Instead, she stood. I need to know something, she said softly. What? If your mother planned another dinner tomorrow and said I couldn't come, would you still go? He opened his mouth. Closed it. That hesitation was louder than any answer. And in that pause, Lina understood something irreversible. She wasn't just uninvited from dinner. She was unprotected. And that felt like betrayal. The silence after Lina's question lingered long after Adrian left the room. If your mother planned another dinner tomorrow and said I couldn't come, would you still go? He hadn't answered. He hadn't needed to. Hesitation is its own confession. The next few days unfolded with eerie normalcy. Adrian went to work. Lina answered emails. They ate dinner together. They spoke about schedules, groceries, the weather. They did not speak about the empty chair. But Lina's mind had shifted into something sharper. Observation. She began noticing things she had once brushed aside. Like the way Adrian always stepped into another room when his mother called. Like how his tone softened, not with affection, but with regression. A teenage version of him resurfacing. Like how often the phrase, Mom thinks, slipped into conversation. Mom thinks we should refinance. Mom thinks you work too much. Mom thinks we should visit more. Mom thinks. Lina wondered when her thoughts had stopped holding equal weight. On Thursday afternoon, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She almost ignored it. Almost. Hello. A pause. Then a familiar voice. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time, Lina. Estella. Polite. Measured. Controlled. No, Lina said evenly. Not at all. I just wanted to clear the air about Saturday. Clear the air. The audacity almost impressed her. I didn't realize there was confusion, Lina replied. A soft chuckle from the other end. Well, you know how sensitive these things can be. Sensitive. As if Lina were a rash to be managed. It was meant to be intimate, Estella continued. Just immediate family. You've used that phrase, Lina said calmly. I'm curious what it means to you. A longer pause this time. It means the people who have been there since the beginning. The beginning. Lina leaned back in her chair. And I haven't. You came later, Estella said gently. And sometimes when a new branch grows, it changes the shape of the tree. The metaphor was almost beautiful, if it hadn't been so pointed. You think I changed your son, Lina said quietly. I think marriage changes men, Estella replied. Sometimes not for the better. There it was. Not passive. Not subtle. A direct incision. Lina felt something unexpected rise inside her. Not hurt. Not anger. Certainty. You don't get to decide whether I'm family, Lina said. Another soft laugh. Oh, sweetheart. That's not my decision. The call ended shortly after. But the message remained. You will never belong here. That evening, Lina didn't tell Adrian about the call. She watched him instead. He seemed distracted. Slightly tense. As if anticipating something. At dinner, his phone lit up repeatedly. Face down on the table. Buzz. 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 Are you going to get that? She asked. It's nothing. Buzz. His jaw tightened. Lina reached forward casually and flipped the phone over before he could stop her. A message preview glowed on the screen. From Estella. Did you talk to her? Her. Not Lina. Her. Another message followed instantly. We need to handle this before it becomes a problem. The air shifted. Handle this. Before it becomes a problem. Lina slowly looked up. Am I the problem? She asked quietly. Adrian grabbed the phone. It's not what you think. Then explain it. He stood abruptly. You're overanalyzing everything. No, she said calmly. I'm finally analyzing it. Silence crashed between them. For the first time since the dinner, Adrian looked unsure. Not defensive. Not dismissive. Uncertain. And uncertainty meant cracks. Later that night, Lina did something she had never done before. She went into Adrian's home office. Not to snoop, but to confirm. She opened the drawer where he kept old photo albums. Flipped through the early years. Childhood birthdays. Family vacations. Graduations. Every photo had captions on the back in Estella's handwriting. Adrian and his world. Family first. Nothing breaks this bond. Lina turned another page. There, tucked between two photographs, was something unexpected. A folded letter. Dated 2 months before their wedding. Her heart pounded as she unfolded it. It was from Estella. Adrian, you are making a decision that will change everything. I worry you are choosing someone who doesn't understand our family's values. I hope you reconsider before you isolate yourself from those who truly love you. Lina's breath caught. Isolate yourself. Truly love you. This had never been about dinner. It had never been about immediate family. It had started before she ever walked down the aisle. She folded the letter carefully and returned it to its place. Her hands were steady now, because the pattern wasn't random. It was strategic. Estella had never accepted her. Adrian had known, and he had married her anyway, without protecting her from the war already brewing. When Adrian came to bed, Lina was awake, staring at the ceiling. Do you ever regret marrying me? She asked softly. He froze. Why would you ask that? Because your mother did. Silence. He didn't deny it. He didn't ask how she knew. He just lay down beside her and stared into the darkness. And in that darkness, Lina understood something terrifying. The betrayal wasn't just exclusion. It was concealment. He had known his mother was trying to erase her, and he had hoped it would fix itself. But erasure, left unchecked, becomes deletion. And Lina had no intention of disappearing quietly. Lina didn't tell Adrian she was going. If she had, he would have tried to stop her. Not loudly, not dramatically, but gently, reasonably, in the way people stop you from touching something sharp, which meant he knew it would cut. Estella's house looked the same as always. Pristine lawn. Symmetrical hedges. White curtains drawn halfway. Never fully open, never fully closed. Control lived here. Lina parked across the street and sat in her car for a full minute. Her pulse wasn't racing. That surprised her. There was no anger. No shaking hands. Just clarity. She stepped out and walked to the door. Knocked. 3 measured taps. The door opened almost immediately. Estella stood there, dressed impeccably as always. Soft beige blouse. Gold earrings. A faint, curated smile. "Lina," she said, as if mildly surprised. "This is unexpected." "I thought we should talk properly," Lina replied. A pause. Then that same polite smile. "Of course. Come in." The house smelled like lemon polish and control. Every picture frame perfectly aligned. Every surface curated. Lina had been here dozens of times before. But today she saw it differently. This wasn't warmth. It was territory. They sat across from each other at the dining table. The same table from the dinner. Lina noticed there were 8 chairs. Not 9. Never 9. "I assume this is about Saturday," Estella began smoothly. "It is," Lina said. Estella folded her hands. "I truly hope you didn't take it personally." "I wasn't invited," Lina said evenly. "It's difficult not to. It was an intimate evening." "You keep using that word. Intimate. Immediate. Close." Lina leaned forward slightly. "What do those mean to you?" Estella's smile thinned almost imperceptibly. "They mean history. Loyalty. Blood. Blood." There it was. Finally, honesty without decoration. "So marriage doesn't count?" Lina asked. "It counts," Estella replied calmly. "But blood is permanent. Marriage is conditional." The words landed between them like porcelain dropped on tile. Sharp. Lina didn't flinch. "Are you hoping mine is?" she asked. For the first time, Estella's expression changed. Not guilt. Not shame. Interest. "I worry," Estella said slowly, "that my son doesn't see clearly when he's with you." "And what does he see clearly without me?" Estella leaned back. "He was devoted to this family. Present. Available. After you, everything became negotiation." Negotiation. Lina almost laughed. "That's called adulthood. It's called distance." Silence filled the space again. But this time it wasn't defensive. It was revealing. "You wrote him a letter before our wedding," Lina said calmly. "That did it." Estella's composure cracked just slightly. "I don't know what you're referring to." "Yes, you do." Lina held her gaze. "You asked him to reconsider marrying me." A beat. Then Estella's voice cooled. "I expressed concern. You asked him to choose. I asked him to think. You tried to stop our marriage." Estella didn't deny it this time. Instead, she said something worse. "I was trying to protect him." From what? From isolation. Lina felt it then. The center of it. The strategy. This had never been about dislike. It was about possession. Estella didn't want to share her son. She wanted hierarchy. And Lina had disrupted it. "You don't see me as family," Lina said quietly. "I see you as temporary," Estella replied. There was no venom in it. Just conviction. And that was more chilling than anger ever could be. The front door opened. Both women turned. Adrian stepped inside. His face drained of color the moment he saw Lina. "What are you doing here?" he asked. Lina stood slowly. "Having a conversation." "With her?" His voice carried tension now. "With your mother," Lina corrected gently. Estella rose too. "You shouldn't have come without telling him," she said. There it was again. Positioning. Lina as intruder. Lina as disruption. Lina turned to Adrian. "Did you know she sees me as temporary?" His eyes flicked to his mother. Then back to Lina. "Mom, answer me." He hesitated. And in that hesitation, something inside Lina hardened permanently. Because he wasn't shocked. He wasn't outraged. He wasn't confused. He was uncomfortable. Which meant he knew. "I thought she'd come around," he said quietly. 6 years. 6 years of coming around. 6 years of polite exclusion. 6 years of empty chairs. Lina nodded slowly. "So you let it continue." "It wasn't that simple." "It was," she said calmly. "You chose comfort over confrontation." Estella stepped forward. "This is exactly what I meant." "She forces division." "No," Lina said without looking at her. "I force acknowledgement." Adrian's voice rose slightly. "Can we not do this here? Where would you prefer?" Lina asked. "Another dinner I'm not invited to?" Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Lina looked around the room one last time. At the polished table. At the 8 chairs. At the framed photos of family. And then she did something neither of them expected. She walked to the head of the table, pulled out a chair, and sat down. Deliberately. "This seat exists," she said quietly. "Whether you acknowledge it or not." Estella's jaw tightened. Adrian looked torn, not between two women, but between two realities. And Lina understood something clearly now. The betrayal wasn't loud. It wasn't explosive. It was slow permission. Permission for her to be diminished. And today that permission expired. She stood, smoothed her blouse. "I won't fight for a seat at a table that keeps pretending I'm not there," she said calmly. She looked directly at Adrian. "But you need to decide whether I build my own table or leave this one entirely." And with that, she walked out, leaving behind the silence they had avoided for years. Lina didn't cry when she got home. She didn't slam doors. She didn't throw anything. She simply walked into the bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled out a suitcase. Not the large one. Not the dramatic one. The medium one. The one people use when they're not sure how long they're staying away. The house felt different now. Not wounded. Not angry. Detached. As if the walls had stepped back to watch. She folded clothes carefully. Methodically. Her movement steady. 3 blouses. 2 pairs of jeans. 1 black dress, just in case. Toiletries. Laptop. Phone charger. The essentials of a life that suddenly felt negotiable. Her mind replayed the image of Adrian standing in that dining room. Not defending her. Not denying his mother's words. Just standing. Neutrality can be cruelty when someone is bleeding. Her phone buzzed. Adrian. She let it ring once. Twice. Then answered. "Where are you?" His voice carried something new. Panic. "At home. I mean, what are you doing?" "Packing." Silence. "You're not serious." "I am." A breath on the other end. "This is extreme." "Is it?" she asked calmly. "It was an argument." "No," Lina said softly. "It was confirmation." He didn't respond. Because he knew. She zipped the suitcase. The sound echoed louder than it should have. "Where are you going?" he asked. "I haven't decided yet." "That's not fair." She almost smiled. Fair. Fair would have been a seat at the table. Fair would have been protection. Fair would have been 6 years ago. "I'll text you when I'm settled," she said. "Lina, don't do this." "I'm not doing anything," she replied quietly. "I'm refusing something." She drove to her sister Mara's apartment across town. Mara didn't ask many questions when she opened the door. One look at the suitcase was enough. "He finally chose his mother, didn't he?" Mara asked gently. Lina stepped inside. He never stopped. That night, for the first time in years, Lina slept without listening for Adrian's breathing beside her. The absence felt strange, but not painful. Relief and grief can live in the same space. Across town, Adrian sat alone at the kitchen table. The same kitchen where the invitation had first landed. The house felt wrong without her. Too quiet. Too hollow. He stared at his phone. His mother had already called 3 times. He ignored it. Instead, he walked into the bedroom. Opened the closet. Her side half empty. Something inside him tightened. Not because she left, but because she meant it. For the first time, her silence wasn't waiting. It was moving. The next morning, Estella showed up unannounced. Adrian opened the door, jaw tight. "She's being dramatic," Estella said immediately, stepping inside. "You need to calm her down before this spirals." Adrian didn't move. "She left," he said flatly. Estella paused. "Well, good. Space might help her reflect." "Reflect? On what? On wanting dignity?" "She didn't leave to reflect," Adrian said slowly. "She left because I let this happen." Estella stiffened. "I have done nothing but protect you. From my wife? From isolation." The word again. Adrian's hands clenched at his sides. "Do you know what isolation feels like?" he asked quietly. Estella frowned. "Of course not. It feels like standing in a room where the person you love is being diminished, and you say nothing." Her expression hardened. "She is turning you against your family." "No," he said, voice low. "You've been asking me to choose for 6 years." The silence between them shifted. For the first time, it wasn't Lina outside the circle. It was Estella. "You owe me loyalty," she said, her voice cooling. "I'm your son. And I am his wife," Lina's voice echoed in his memory. Marriage is aside. He hadn't understood that fully until now. Later that afternoon, Adrian drove to Mara's apartment. He stood outside the door for a full minute before knocking. Lina opened it. She looked calm. Too calm. Can we talk? He asked. She stepped aside. They sat across from each other, mirrors of the conversation she had just had with his mother. Different room. Same tension. I should have defended you, he said first. No excuses. No softening. She didn't respond. I thought keeping peace would fix it, he continued. I thought if I didn't confront her, she'd eventually accept you. And if she didn't? Lina asked. He swallowed. I didn't want to see that possibility. That's the problem, she said quietly. You didn't want to see. Silence. Honest this time. I love you, he said. I know, she replied. And I don't want to lose you. Then don't. It wasn't a plea. It was a boundary. He leaned forward. What do you need? She looked at him carefully. Not measuring love. Measuring strength. I need you to choose the life we built, she said. Not the one she refuses to release. He nodded slowly. I will. She held his gaze. Then it won't be me leaving next time. The words settled heavily. Because this wasn't about a dinner. Or a letter. Or 8 chairs. It was about whether Adrian could step out of his mother's shadow. And whether Lina was willing to wait while he tried. As Adrian left that evening, Estella watched from her front window across town. Her expression unreadable. Because power, once challenged, does not retreat quietly. And Lina had just disrupted a balance that had existed for decades. This wasn't over. Not even close. Adrian didn't call first. He drove. Some conversations do not belong on the phone. Estella opened the door before he knocked, as if she'd been waiting. You shouldn't be out, she said immediately. You need to focus on fixing your marriage. I am, Adrian replied. Her eyes narrowed slightly at his tone. He didn't step inside. I won't stay long. A flicker of irritation crossed her face. Control prefers familiarity. He was breaking pattern. Fine, she said coolly. Come in. The dining table gleamed. 8 chairs. Always 8. Adrian stared at it for a long moment before speaking. She left because of this. Because she's emotional, Estella corrected smoothly. No, he said firmly. Because I let you treat her like she wasn't family. Estella's posture stiffened. I have never disrespected her. You erased her. That's dramatic. It's accurate. Silence filled the room. Adrian walked slowly to the table. Placed his hands on the back of one chair. Why 8? He asked quietly. She blinked. What? There's space for 9. Her lips pressed thin. Not everyone needs a permanent seat. The words hit harder than she intended. Adrian felt something click into place. All these years, he had mistaken subtlety for kindness. But subtle cruelty is still cruelty. She is my wife, he said evenly. That makes her permanent. Marriage fails every day, Estella replied. Not this one. She laughed softly. You're choosing her over your own blood. He met her eyes. I'm choosing the family I created. There it was. The shift. Estella's composure faltered, just barely. You're letting her manipulate you. She didn't manipulate me. She endured me. That stopped her. I avoided confrontation because it was easier, he continued. For me. Not for her. You're overreacting. No, he said calmly. I'm finally reacting. Estella's voice hardened. If she makes you distance yourself from us, you will regret it. I'm not distancing myself, Adrian said. I'm setting boundaries. The word felt foreign in his mouth. Boundaries. His mother had never believed in them. There had only ever been loyalty. And loyalty meant obedience. You will not exclude my wife again, he said. If she isn't invited, I'm not coming. Estella stared at him. You wouldn't. I already did once, he replied quietly. That won't happen again. The silence that followed was heavy with decades of hierarchy unraveling. You're threatening your own mother, she said. I'm protecting my marriage. Protection. The very thing Lina had asked for. Estella stood abruptly. So this is what she wanted. To divide us. No, Adrian said gently. She wanted to belong. She never will, Estella snapped, the first true crack in her mask. And in that moment, Adrian understood something deeply unsettling. This wasn't about adjustment. It wasn't about time. It wasn't about tradition. It was about possession. His mother didn't want to share. Not her table. Not her authority. Not her son. He straightened. If you can't accept her, he said quietly, then you're choosing distance. Not me. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Final. That night, Adrian returned to Lina at Mara's apartment. She opened the door slowly. He looked different. Not angry. Not defensive. Resolved. I told her, he said. Lina searched his face. Told her what? If you're not invited, I'm not coming. A long pause. You meant it, she asked. Yes. Another silence. But this one felt different. Less fragile. More grounded. She said I'm choosing you over blood, he added. And? Lina asked. I told her I already did. The day I married you. Something inside her softened. Not completely. But enough. This doesn't fix 6 years, she said carefully. I know. But it's a start. He nodded. I'll do more than start. She studied him. Trust doesn't return all at once. It rebuilds brick by brick. Then prove it, she said quietly. He didn't hesitate. I will. Across town, Estella sat alone at her dining table. 8 chairs. She stared at the empty head seat. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar. Not anger. Not control. Fear. Because power maintained through silence collapses when confronted. And Lina had forced confrontation. The question now wasn't whether Adrian would choose. He had. The question was what Estella would do next. Because people who are losing control rarely surrender peacefully. The call came 3 days later. 7:14 a.m. Adrian's phone vibrated against the nightstand. He answered half asleep. Mom. Lina watched his expression change in real time. Confusion. Concern. Panic. What do you mean you collapsed? Lina sat up slowly. Collapsed. The word filled the room like smoke. They were at the hospital within 20 minutes. Estella lay in a hospital bed, pale but composed. And 4 in her arm. Monitors humming softly beside her. Too composed. Her eyes found Adrian immediately. My son, she whispered weakly. He rushed forward. What happened? Just dizziness, a nurse said calmly. Stress can do that. Stress. Estella's gaze flickered briefly toward Lina. Just a second. But long enough. The doctor assured them it wasn't life-threatening. Exhaustion. Elevated blood pressure. Anxiety. She needs rest, he said. And reduced emotional strain. Reduced emotional strain. Estella reached for Adrian's hand. I didn't want to worry you, she murmured. I know things have been tense. Lina stood at the foot of the bed. Observing. The frailty felt theatrical. The timing felt surgical. You need to avoid conflict, Estella continued softly. Family should heal each other, not divide. There it was. Not accusation. Positioning. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. We're not dividing anything, he said carefully. Estella's fingers tightened around his. I just don't want to lose you. Lina felt it then. The shift. This wasn't confrontation anymore. It was strategy. When control through authority fails, control through vulnerability begins. Later, in the hallway, Lina leaned against the wall. She's scared, Adrian said quietly. She's calculating, Lina replied. He frowned. You think she's faking? No, Lina said. I think she knows exactly how to look fragile. He exhaled. That's unfair. Is it? She stepped closer. She collapsed 3 days after you set a boundary. That's coincidence. Is it? The repetition wasn't cruel. It was calm. And calm unsettled him more than anger ever had. Estella was discharged the next afternoon. But not before asking Adrian to stay the night. Just until I fall asleep, she said gently. Lina watched him hesitate. Not because he wanted to. Because he felt obligated. Obligation, Estella's oldest tool. I'll stay for a bit, he said. Lina nodded. I'll head home. Estella's eyes softened. Thank you for understanding, dear. Dear. Like sugar over poison. That evening, Lina sat alone in their living room. The house felt quieter than before. But this time, it wasn't emptiness. It was evaluation. She replayed the hospital room in her mind. The timing. The phrasing. The way Estella never once apologized. Only reframed. Family should heal each other. Translation. Stop challenging me. I don't want to lose you. Translation. Choose me. Lina didn't feel threatened. She felt aware. Because manipulation loses power when it's recognized. At 10:43 p.m., her phone buzzed. Adrian. She's asleep. I'm heading home. She typed back. Drive safe. No accusation. No pressure. No ultimatum. When he arrived, he looked exhausted. I think we pushed her too hard, he said quietly. Lina studied him carefully. Did she apologize? She asked. He paused. No. Did she acknowledge excluding me? No. Did she take responsibility for anything? Silence. She said she's afraid of losing you, he replied. And what did you say? I told her she won't. If she respects my marriage. Lina nodded slowly. That's the only correct answer. He sat beside her. I'm trying. I know. That was the difference now. He was trying. But trying isn't tested in calm moments. It's tested when guilt enters the room. Across town, Estella sat upright in bed. Not asleep. Not weak. Thinking. Her phone rested in her lap. A draft message typed but unsent. Family dinner Sunday. Just us. She stared at it, then deleted the last 3 words. Rewrote it. Family dinner Sunday. All of us. Her jaw tightened slightly as she hit send. Because this was no longer about quiet exclusion. This was about reclaiming authority. And Sunday would not be a dinner. It would be a stage. Lina's phone buzzed simultaneously. The invitation notification appeared. For the first time. Her name included. She looked at Adrian. Well, she said softly. He swallowed. Sunday. Yes, she replied. And they both understood. This wouldn't be reconciliation. It would be confrontation disguised as hospitality. And someone would leave that table permanently changed. Sunday arrived dressed as peace. Clear skies. Mild air. The kind of day that pretends nothing ugly could possibly happen beneath it. Lina dressed carefully. Not to impress. Not to provoke. But to stand. Soft navy dress. Minimal jewelry. Hair pulled back. Composed. Adrian watched her from the doorway. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. Yes, she replied calmly. I do. Because avoidance had already cost her 6 years. When they arrived, the front door was already open. Estella stood waiting. Smiling. Measured. Welcome, she said smoothly. Her eyes lingered on Lina half a second longer than necessary. Assessment. They stepped inside. The dining room was visible immediately. And there it was. 9 chairs. Lina stopped walking for just a fraction of a second. Not because she was emotional. Because she noticed. The 9th chair wasn't perfectly matched. It had been brought in from another room. Similar wood. Different design. Temporary. Estella noticed her noticing. I had to add one, she said lightly. Hope that's all right. Lina met her gaze. I'm sure we'll make it work. The words were polite. But the meaning wasn't. Dinner began smoothly. Too smoothly. Adrian's sister chatted about work. His uncle told a familiar story. Glasses clinked. Surface harmony. Lina observed the seating arrangement. Estella at the head. Adrian to her right. Lina to his right. Not beside Estella. Not opposite. Adjacent but peripheral. Calculated. Halfway through the meal, Estella lifted her glass. I'd like to say something. Of course she would. She stood slowly. I've been reflecting this week. The room quieted. I realized that family is evolving. Her eyes drifted briefly toward Lina. And sometimes growth feels uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. Lina kept her expression neutral. But what matters, Estella continued, is that we remain united. Blood may begin a family, but loyalty sustains it. Loyalty. There it was again. The word she wielded like currency. She raised her glass. To unity. Everyone echoed it. To unity. Lina lifted her glass too. But she didn't drink. The meal continued. Then came the pivot. Subtle. Sharp. Well, Estella said casually, cutting into her roast. I hope there won't be any more misunderstandings that pull Adrian away from us. The table stilled slightly. Eyes flicked. Lina felt it. The framing. She wasn't excluding Lina anymore. She was positioning her as disruptive. I never pulled him away, Lina said calmly. Estella smiled faintly. No, of course not. But sometimes when a wife feels insecure, she demands unnecessary reassurances. The words were velvet-wrapped knives. The room held its breath. Adrian stiffened. Lina tilted her head slightly. Insecure, she repeated evenly. Estella dabbed her napkin. Well, leaving the house over a dinner invitation. Ah, there it was. Public narrative. She left because I didn't defend her, Adrian said suddenly. Every head turned. Estella blinked. That's not necessary. It is, he said firmly. The tone wasn't loud, but it was solid. Lina felt something shift beside her. Not hesitation. Presence. Estella's composure wavered. Adrian, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time, he replied. You excluded my wife for years. A fork clattered softly somewhere down the table. You told me she was temporary. Silence detonated. Lina didn't move. Didn't speak. Because this wasn't her battle in this moment. It was his. Estella's face flushed slightly. That was private, she said tightly. No, Adrian replied. It was harmful. The room felt smaller. He continued. I should have addressed it sooner. I didn't. That's on me. Lina's breath slowed. He wasn't blaming. He wasn't deflecting. He was owning. If Lina isn't respected here, he said, then I won't be here either. The words didn't echo. They landed. Heavy. Final. Estella looked around the table. Searching. For agreement. For support. For reinforcement of hierarchy. But something unexpected happened. Adrian's sister spoke quietly. Mom, you have been hard on her. The uncle shifted. We've noticed it too. Cracks. Not rebellion. But acknowledgement. Estella's authority trembled. I was protecting this family, she said, her voice tightening. No, Lina said gently for the first time that evening. You were controlling it. The word hung in the air. No one contradicted her. That was the loudest response of all. Estella slowly sat down. For the first time, she looked smaller. Not weak. Just exposed. You think I wanted to lose my son? She asked quietly. Lina answered softly. You were losing him by trying to own him. Silence. Then Adrian did something simple. He stood, walked to the side of the table, and moved the 9th chair. Not to the end. Not slightly out of place. He repositioned it beside his own. Evenly aligned. Permanent. He sat down again, and took Lina's hand openly. Not defensively. Not performatively. Naturally. The message was clear. Equal. Dinner ended shortly after. Polite goodbyes. Measured tension. But something irreversible had happened. The power structure had shifted. And everyone had seen it. Outside, as they walked to the car, Lina exhaled slowly. You didn't hesitate, she said quietly. I did for 6 years, Adrian replied. That was enough. She looked back at the house once. The curtains were half closed. But one panel had shifted slightly. Not fully open. But not guarded the same way. Progress doesn't always roar. Sometimes it realigns a chair. Inside, Estella stood alone at the table. 9 chairs now. Aligned. She touched the edge of the added one. It was still slightly different. Still not original. But it was there. And for the first time, she understood something uncomfortable. Control had kept her son close. But it had nearly cost her him entirely. And fear is not loyalty. Victory is quieter than people expect. There were no dramatic apologies after Sunday dinner. No tearful embraces. No cinematic transformation. Just a shift. And shifts take time to settle. Monday morning felt almost normal. Lina stood in the kitchen making coffee. Adrian came up behind her. Wrapped his arms around her waist. Not out of guilt. Not to reassure. Just because he wanted to. You okay? He asked softly. Yes, she replied. And for the first time in weeks, she meant it. But peace after confrontation isn't the same as trust restored. It's fragile. Like a repaired crack in glass. Stronger, maybe, but still visible. That afternoon, Lina received a message. From Estella. Her pulse didn't spike. It slowed. I would like to speak with you. Alone. No emojis. No softness. Just direct. Lina stared at it for a long moment before replying. Tomorrow afternoon works. No fear. No avoidance. She would not be the uninvited one again. The cafe Estella chose was neutral territory. Public. Controlled. Strategic. Estella arrived precisely on time. No hospital pallor now. No fragile demeanor. Composed. They sat across from each other. 2 women who had been circling the same territory for years. I suppose we should stop pretending, Estella began. Lina lifted an eyebrow slightly. That would be refreshing. A small, humorless smile. I don't dislike you. That's good, Lina replied calmly. Because I never disliked you either. I resented you. Honesty. Finally. Because? Lina asked. Estella exhaled. When Adrian was young, his father worked constantly. I was his world. Every decision went through me. Every milestone included me. She paused. And then he married you. I didn't remove you, Lina said quietly. No, Estella admitted. You replaced me. There it was. Not hatred. Not cruelty. Fear. The kind that dresses itself as control. You raised him, Lina said. That doesn't disappear. It feels like it does. Silence settled between them. But it wasn't sharp this time. It was human. I handled it poorly, Estella continued. Exclusion was easier than acceptance. Lina appreciated the phrasing. Not defensive. Not manipulative. Just true. You tried to shrink me, Lina said gently. Because you felt yourself shrinking. Estella's jaw tightened slightly. Yes. The word was small. But it mattered. I will not compete with you, Lina said firmly. I'm not trying to take your place. Estella looked at her carefully. And if I fail again, she asked. You won't get a quiet pass next time. Not threatening. Just clear. Boundaries don't need volume. They need consistency. Estella nodded slowly. That's fair. Fair. A word that hadn't lived between them before. Meanwhile, Adrian sat at his office desk, staring at an email he had opened but not read. The last few weeks had shaken something deeper than family dynamics. They had forced him to confront a truth he'd avoided. He had been conflict avoidant his entire life. Not just with his mother. At work. In friendships. In everything. Peacekeeping had cost him intimacy. And Lina had been the first person unwilling to accept it. He wasn't angry at her for that. He was grateful. Growth rarely feels gentle. That evening, Lina returned home thoughtful but calm. Well, Adrian asked. She admitted it, Lina said. Admitted what? She was afraid. He absorbed that. Do you believe her? Yes. And fear doesn't excuse behavior. But it explains it. He nodded. Are we okay? Lina walked toward him slowly. Placed her hand against his chest. We're better, she said. Because you chose. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But clearly. He covered her hand with his own. I should have sooner. You didn't, she replied softly. But you did. And sometimes timing is less important than action. That weekend, Estella invited them to lunch. Again. This time, Lina's name wasn't added last. It was printed equally. The 9th chair remained beside Adrian. Matching. She had bought a new one. Not identical, but intentional. Progress doesn't erase history. It builds over it. As they sat at the table, Lina noticed something subtle. Estella poured her wine first. Small gesture, but deliberate. Not dominance. Recognition. Across the table, Adrian caught Lina's eye. A silent exchange. We survived this. But more than that, we grew. Later that night, alone in their bedroom, Lina lay beside Adrian in the quiet. Do you ever think about how small it started? He asked. A dinner, she said. Yes. She smiled faintly. It was never about dinner. He nodded. No, it had been about belonging. About voice. About whether love is passive or protective. The empty chair had forced everything into the open. And sometimes, being uninvited is the thing that teaches you where you truly stand. But peace, even earned, is never permanent. Because families evolve. Old habits linger. And power doesn't disappear, it shifts. The question now wasn't whether Lina had a seat at the table. She did. The question was, what would she build with it? Peace lasted 3 months. Long enough to feel real. Short enough to feel fragile. The 9th chair stayed. Lunches became civil. Estella remained careful, measured, restrained. Almost cooperative. Which is why the phone call felt strange. Adrian listened quietly, his expression tightening. When? He asked. A pause. Okay. We'll be there. He hung up slowly. Lina watched him. What happened? My father's lawyer called. She blinked. Your father's? His father had died 12 years ago. Heart attack. Sudden. Clean. At least, that was the story. He says there's something we need to review, Adrian continued. Apparently Mom didn't want to handle it before. Didn't want to handle what? The lawyer's office smelled like old paper and quiet secrets. Estella was already seated when they arrived. Composed. Controlled. Too controlled. The lawyer, Mr. Delaney, adjusted his glasses. Thank you all for coming. There's a clause in your late husband's estate that activates under specific conditions. Lina felt something cold move through her. What conditions? Adrian asked. Mr. Delaney folded his hands. Disclosure of assets previously withheld. Silence. Adrian frowned. Withheld from who? The lawyer glanced at Estella. She didn't move. From you, Mr. Delaney said. The air shifted. Adrian laughed once, confused. That doesn't make sense. Mom handled everything after Dad died. Yes, the lawyer replied carefully. She did. And then he slid a document across the table. To summarize, your father placed a substantial inheritance in trust. It was to be transferred to you upon marriage. The room stopped breathing. Upon marriage? Adrian repeated slowly. Yes. He looked at his mother. Her jaw tightened slightly. How much? He asked. Mr. Delaney cleared his throat. $800,000. The words didn't echo. They detonated. Lina felt Adrian go completely still beside her. "Why didn't I know about this?" he asked quietly. Estella's voice remained steady. "Because you weren't ready." The sentence hung in the air. "You were young when he died," she continued. "Impulsive. Marriage changes things. I wanted to be sure." "Sure of what?" Adrian asked. "That your wife wasn't after your money." The world tilted. Lina didn't flinch. But she felt it. The reframe. Every exclusion. Every test. Every silent evaluation. "This. You withheld my inheritance for 6 years?" Adrian's voice had lost warmth. "I protected it," Estella corrected. "You lied. I delayed. You made my marriage a financial addition." Silence swallowed the room. Estella finally looked at Lina. "I had to know her intentions." Lina met her gaze steadily. "You thought I married him for money I didn't even know existed." "Yes." The honesty was brutal. Not defensive. Not ashamed. Certain. Adrian pushed his chair back slowly. "All this time," he said quietly, "you made her prove herself." "She had to," Estella insisted. "No," he said, voice tightening. "You did." The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "There is also one additional clause," he said softly. All three turned. "The funds transfer immediately, provided Mr. Adrian chooses independent financial authority moving forward." The meaning was clear. The inheritance had been structured to remove Estella's control. His father had anticipated this. Adrian felt something collapse inside him. His father had known. Known his mother would hold power tightly. Known she would test loyalty. Known she might interfere. This wasn't just money. It was proof. Proof that control had extended further than dinner invitations. Lina finally spoke. "You never believed I loved him," she said quietly. Estella's composure cracked for the first time. "I believed you loved him," she said. "But love fades. Money stays. And you thought money was stronger than me." Estella didn't answer. Because she had. Outside the office, Adrian stood frozen. $800,000. 6 years hidden. 6 years of suspicion. "It was never about belonging," he said slowly. "It was about control." Lina nodded. She needed leverage. He turned to her. "You never asked me about money." "Not once." She almost smiled. "We built a life without it." And suddenly, he understood something devastating. His mother had tested Lina for greed, while Lina had endured exclusion without ever knowing there was anything to gain. The irony was surgical. That evening, Estella sat alone at her dining table. 9 chairs. But now something else was missing. Authority. Because control built on secrecy collapses when exposed. She had feared losing her son. And in trying to guard what she thought might be taken, she had fractured what was freely given. At home, Adrian sat beside Lina in the quiet. "What do we do?" he asked. She considered the question carefully. "Not what your mother expects." He looked at her. "She expected me to keep it separate. To protect it. And will you?" He shook his head slowly. "No." He took her hand. "We decide together. Not because of money, but because of equality." For the first time, there was no shadow behind their table. No withheld truth. No silent leverage. Just choice. But here's the deeper twist. Later that night, Adrian opened the full file and found one more document. A handwritten letter from his father. Addressed not to Estella. Not to Adrian. But to whoever stands beside my son when he reads this. "Lina, the story isn't over." Adrian didn't open the letter immediately. He held it for a long moment, turning it over in his hands as if the weight might change. "To whoever stands beside my son when he reads this." Not to my son and his wife. Not to Adrian. To whoever stands beside him. His father had written it 12 years ago, which meant one thing. He knew. Lina sat across from him at the kitchen table. The same table where the first invitation had landed. The same table where she had once questioned whether she belonged. Now there were 2 cups of tea between them. Equal. Steady. "Open it," she said softly. He did. The paper inside was thick, slightly yellowed at the edges. His father's handwriting was firm but unpolished. "Adrian, if you are reading this, it means you chose someone to walk through life with. I don't know who she is, but I know something about your mother. She loves fiercely, and she fears deeply. When I married her, I thought love would soften her need to control. It didn't. So I learned something instead. The person beside you is not competition. They are expansion. If your mother ever makes your wife feel like she must audition for a place in this family, remember this. A family is not inherited. It is built. Money is protection. But protection without trust becomes a weapon. Choose wisely. Not between women, but between fear and growth. Dad. The kitchen felt impossibly quiet. Lina watched Adrian read the letter again. Then once more. His throat tightened. He knew, Adrian whispered. Yes, Lina said gently. He knew she would test you. She didn't test me, Lina replied softly. She tested you. The truth settled slowly. Estella hadn't been trying to measure Lina. She had been measuring whether Adrian would outgrow her influence. And for 6 years, he hadn't. Adrian folded the letter carefully. I failed for a while, he said quietly. You learned, Lina corrected. He looked up at her. I don't want to build this marriage reacting to my mother anymore. Then don't, she said. The answer was simple, but not easy. The next day, Adrian asked Estella to come over. Not to argue. Not to accuse. To end something. She sat at their table now. 9 chairs weren't needed here. Only 3. He placed the letter in front of her. She recognized the handwriting instantly. Her expression changed, not anger, not shock. Memory. He left that, she asked quietly. Yes. Silence stretched. You always thought I was trying to take something from you, Adrian said calmly. I was trying to keep you, she replied. And in doing that, you almost lost me. She didn't deny it. The fight had drained out of her. Not because she was defeated, but because the structure she relied on had dissolved. I didn't trust that I would still matter, she admitted softly. Lina spoke gently. You matter differently. Not above. Not in control. Differently. Estella's eyes lifted to hers. For the first time, there was no rivalry in them. Just age. And realization. I made you feel unwelcome, she said. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't emotional. It was plain. Yes, Lina answered. And you stayed. Yes. Why? Lina didn't hesitate. Because I wasn't fighting for a seat at your table. She looked at Adrian. I was building my own. The room stilled. And something subtle but irreversible shifted. Estella wasn't the head of this family anymore. Not because she had been pushed out, but because she no longer held the center. Weeks later, the inheritance transferred. $800,000. Untouched. Not divided. Not weaponized. They didn't rush to spend it. They didn't announce it. Instead, Lina suggested something simple. Let's invest part of it, she said. In what? Adrian asked. In something that creates, not controls. They started a small community foundation in his father's name. Grants for young couples starting businesses. Financial literacy workshops. Quiet empowerment. Money becoming expansion. Not leverage. Sunday lunches continued. Not perfectly. Not effortlessly. But honestly. The 9th chair remained. Not temporary anymore. Permanent. And one afternoon, months later, Estella did something no one expected. She moved her seat. Not at the head of the table, but beside Lina. Small gesture. Large meaning. I suppose families grow, she said quietly. They do, Lina replied. And sometimes, Estella added, the new branch strengthens the tree. The metaphor had changed. So had she. That night, as Lina and Adrian lay in bed, he traced lazy circles on her hand. Funny, he murmured. What? All this started because you weren't invited to dinner. Lina smiled faintly. No, she said softly. It started because I decided I was. He turned toward her. I'm glad you didn't disappear. She met his eyes steadily. I was never going to, because being uninvited had taught her something powerful. Belonging is not granted. It is embodied. And love, real love, does not sit silently while someone you cherish is erased. It stands. It aligns the chair. It chooses. Every time.